You guys know what to do. If you have any clips that you'd like me to react to, interesting ones, you can just send them to the Telegram link below, inshallah. So there is an interesting clip that I want to react to today. Is from this YouTuber, Asmongold. But if you guys remember that I made a previous video, a clip react video, where I invited him for a discussion, right? He was saying that he would like to read the Quran and like learn what Muslims actually believe. So I sent him a friendly invitation. He actually did respond to this invitation. So before I react to the clip where he's speaking about Islam and women and stuff like that, let's first see what he said about the invitation that I sent him.
Muslim Lantern invites you to have a discussion about Islam. If you want to ask questions, brother, well, tell him I really appreciate it. Tell him thank you. Like, I've got a lot of Muslim friends, and you know, I'll probably ask them about it.
So he said he appreciates it, which is, you know, very much appreciated. I appreciate that he appreciates the invitation. But then he goes and he says that he has Muslim friends. Yeah, I have Muslim friends and I'm going to ask them about it. Now, what's the issue with this? First, we're going to see, he's going to mention something about one of his friends in the video you're going to react to, and you're going to realize the issue with that. But the main problem is what? Is when you have a specialized issue, a specialized field, and you want to learn about that thing, then you go to the people of expertise, you go to the people of knowledge. You have an issue with your heart, you have an issue with your teeth. You don't go to your friend, you say, this guy's my friend, so I'm going to go and ask him about it. You go to people who are specialized in those fields. Just because someone is born into a faith or into a religion, it doesn't make them knowledgeable about it. I mean, the West is the best example of this. Like, how many people are born into Christianity and just they don't go to church, they never read the Bible. Just like, oh, I have Christian friends, so I'm going to ask them about Christianity. They're not familiar with the teachings of Christianity. So you'd go to someone who studied, who learned, who's an expert in that field. And you don't have to talk to me, really, right? This is the thing. Asmongold doesn't have to talk to me. He can talk to any Muslim who is, knowledgeable about Islam. That's all we're asking. So sadly, a lot of people are like happy being in an echo chamber. They never left America. They never visited Muslim countries. They never saw what people actually believe. And they have an echo chamber of followers that are also Americans. Like, America, America is the best country in the world, We are the advanced people in every field. We know everything, whatever. And that's in all be all. Some of them never left their mother's basement, let alone leave their country and see what other people actually believe in. And yeah, it's sad when people live in echo chambers. So, I mean, this is the result. So why is this an issue? It's an issue when we extend invitations, or people extend invitations. Let's have a discussion with people who actually know about Islam. And he refuses it, which is completely his right. But the problem is that he goes on and then he reacts to things about Islam. And then we hear some of the craziest things. So the thing is with Asmongold, he's been, in the past, he made fun of, like, I think, death of Palestinians or something like that. And everyone kind of criticized him for it. And he had to do this apology. You know how it is with some streamers. They just like do this whatever apology when they do something wrong and then just get back to doing what they were doing. Sadly, recently, he's been pushing a lot of Zayu propaganda, and he's been having very, very problematic views as well. However, we still have our offer on the table for him to talk. And like I said, he doesn't have to talk to me. Just speak to anyone. Have someone who's not actually a part of your echo chamber that is repeating the same views that you have, who's actually going to be on the opposite side, who's going to challenge some of what you say. And I think anybody should do that. That's the healthy way of actually exploring whether what you believe in is right, or you're just living in a bubble and you think whatever is being spread around you is the truth. So let's actually hear this clip where he actually talks about women in Islam and stuff like that. He's reacting to someone, but he's agreeing with what that someone says. Let's have a look.
This is them talking about Islam. Oh boy, here we go.
I wasn't always Muslim. I was actually raised Catholic.
This is a highlight from Caleb Hammer's financial audit. His full video in the description.
Islam is probably the most feminist, most
Islam is the most feminist religion
there is.
There is.
Very much protective of
Yes, it is certainly Middle Eastern countries that are most well known for their feminism and freedom for women.
It is.
I have no clue who this person is. These two Muslims, I mean, it seems that they haven't done a really good job. So this video has over 1 million views or something, and in 10 days. So it's gone quite viral. And I don't know who these Muslims are. They clearly haven't done a good job in this case, but I'm not sure who they are. She seems like she's a revert. And, this is the issue now. Now there's a huge issue I want to comment on, which is the idea of watering down Islam. I'm not going to blame this woman too much. Who I'm going to blame is the preachers or the people who are watering down the religion of Islam. Because this video is titled what? She converted to Islam and now she wants to change it. So she's saying Islam is feminism. She's basically changing the religion of Islam because Islam is not feministic. Islam was definitely not. So this is what the clip is kind of trying to say. But the clip is also going to extreme, and we're going to comment on how it's going to extreme. But in this case, who am I blaming? I'm really blaming those people who are watering down the religion of Islam to the audiences, mostly people in the West, but we also have them in the East as well. You have all of these people who, because of liberalism and feminism, they change the teachings of Islam, they change the teachings of the religion, they water down the teachings of Islam. So then you have all of these audiences who are non-Muslim who are listening, oh, that makes sense. If Islam is saying this, then I should become Muslim because it aligns with my views. So you have these preachers essentially corrupting the ideology of what Islam actually teaches and pushing it as if Islam teaches these things. Then you have some of these people who are naive, who didn't do research, who don't understand what Islam actually teaches, and they accept and take what is being said. And like I said, I'm not going to blame that naive person that thinks, oh, this guy is a Muslim speaker, therefore he must be saying the truth. So now this is the issue. This is the danger that we have within the Muslim Ummah, where we have those people who are watering down Islam, making everything seem fuzzy, aligning Islam with liberal ideologies. You have these women, like, you want to change the entire religion of Islam about, for example, the family structure of who is in charge in the household between the man and woman, or the idea of women working, or the idea of the hijab and the niqab. And all of these things are being westernized and being liberalized and being feminized by those people. So they are the main people to blame when it comes to things like this.
The Middle East.
If they're practicing Islam, yes.
So you're saying they're all practicing it incorrectly everywhere, including Mecca?
I mean, if they're oppressing people, of course, yeah.
But you're telling me women are more free in Islam than any other religion?
Okay, so women are more free in Islam than any other religion. What do you mean by free? Yeah, we are going to say women are more free, but our definition of freedom is completely different from your definition of freedom. So what happens a lot in conversations like this is terms are not defined. It's buzzwords that people throw up, right? Because they follow propaganda. They never left their basement. They never left their country. And then they're just repeating what they hear from people who are spreading false information about Islam. And they throw these buzzwords, and you have these followers that heard the same buzzwords. My favorite streamer said it, therefore it must be true. So far, like, it's just like buzzwords. What do you mean women are free? Yeah, Islamic women are more free than anyone. They know the truth. What is more freedom for someone than to know what the truth is? For why you exist in this life, what's going to happen to you in the afterlife? What is more freedom than to be safe and have tranquility that you're in the afterlife, you're going to be safe if you die as a Muslim, you're going to enter paradise. There's nothing more freeing than this. There's nothing more freeing than knowing what is your role in this life, how God created you. God created you as a female, and you have a role that will fit you. Not giving you roles of the man and then giving them to the female. That's not going to make you free. That's not what freedom is. Freedom is being modest. Yeah, not your guys' definition of freedom. As many clothes as you take off, the more free you are. As someone said, that then the animals are the most free because they're not wearing nothing, right? So if this is your definition of freedom, then yeah, you have a skewed definition of freedom. So we need to define terms.
I feel like,
okay, here we go.
it's...
With the most theocratic regimes being Islamic right now, with the least freedoms for women and most violence against women than any other countries.
Yes.
Okay, so he says the most theocratic regimes, okay, that they're applying God's law. The reality is most of these Muslim countries, or let's say all Muslim countries today, there's not a single Muslim country that applies the Islamic law 100%. Doesn't exist. That's number one. Number two, he says that they have more like violence or oppression towards women more than any other country. Where's the stats? Where's the proof? Just like spewing claims. Like I said, buzzwords. People are saying things, they're not given any proofs for them. But you know what? Let's actually talk numbers. Let's see how free and how they have no violence, no oppression, no issues at all happening to women in the West, according to this guy. So let's actually look at numbers. What do numbers tell us? So first we have, for example, this study done of America and the West. Over 100,000 women. Now, I'm not going to talk to you now about small studies. I'm going to talk to you about actual real studies. Now, you have this study by Blanche Flower and Oswald. Over 100,000 women. And they look at women from 1970 to 1990s to up to the 2000s, basically. Basically, since the start of feminism and liberalism and enlightenment and all of what this guy is trying to tell us, that women in the West are free. You know, they're now more in education, they're more in the workforce, they get to abort their own, they're able to have all of these quote unquote freedoms. How happy are these women? And it is showing you that women are more depressed than ever. They're taking more antidepressants than ever. So this idea of, oh yeah, you know, your type of freedom, let women take their clothes off and let women go to the workforce and let women be the head of the household and all of the stuff that you guys are pushing. We're looking at it now. This is your type of freedom, right? Is this now what is making these women free? This is what numbers are saying, and this is what studies are saying. He was just telling us, you know, most violence is happening in Muslim countries. He's trying to make that claim. And you have this UN studies, massive study, I believe 40 to 50,000 women been surveyed in this study. It is titled Violence Against Women Every Day and Everywhere. You know, let's talk about some of the numbers that this study tells us. So this study tells us that 33% of women have experienced physical and sexual, as we were saying, violence since the age of 15. That corresponds to 62 million women. 22% of them have experienced it by a partner, that violence that we're talking about. 5% of these women have been grape, you know what I mean. Almost 1 in 10 women, they have experienced violence by a non-partner. 43% have experienced some sort of psychological violence. 33% of them, childhood. Now we're talking about childhood experiences of, as you know, violence, violence. These are the numbers that the UN is telling us. 80% of them have experienced stalking. 55% of them have experienced some form of SA. 32% of them said it was a boss, a colleague, or a customer. This is the most important point here to keep in mind. 67% of them did not report the most serious incidents of violence to the police or any other organizations. So now when we talk about these numbers, this 40%, 33%, 30%, 55%, all of these numbers that we're talking about, keep in mind that 67% did not report. So imagine how many women are not reporting. How many women are not reporting? Because they're afraid. They don't want to speak out. They don't want to say. They don't want to be looked at in a wrong way, in a bad way. By the way, this study was in 2014. They did also a study in 2024 and 2026. And it's titled like the EU Gender-Based Violence Survey. And it concludes, again, the same idea. 30% of women experience violence, etc. Same idea. Nothing has changed. Now we're talking actual numbers, right? So this is the freedom of the West that he's talking about. You know, the Muslim countries, the most violence. What's your source? I made it up. Now, when it comes to his own countries, he's ignoring all of these studies. There was this study by the Telegraph, I think, in France. They surveyed like 600 women on public transport, and they showed that 100% of them are experiencing a form of SA or harassment or whatever. 100%. All of the women surveyed. Like I said, it's crazy. You look at, for example, at women in the West, like divorce in America, for example, because these people are American. You look at, for example, the Institute of Family Studies. It tells you that about 40% of today's marriages will end in divorce. 40%. If you get married, 1 of every 2 people are going to be divorced. And then you have 80% of these divorces are initiated by women. These women that are unhappy or upset. And then you have this idea in the West of no-fault divorce. You know, it's not for a problem. I'm just like, I'm a bit depressed, so you're gonna end up having divorce. And then you have a society full of single mothers and single fathers. And you can read the book, The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell, where he talks about the people in prisons. Like you look at like 90% of them come from single parent houses. So this is the Western alternatives, the freedom in the West, you know, the no violence in the West. So it's really funny when you have these people trying to talk to us about freedom and stuff like that. No evidences, no studies, but they just want to talk about Islam.
I think that's all because of media portrayal. I don't.
Oh my God. Such an elaborate delusion.
Sadly, he's just laughing. Okay, she said that it's the media is portraying Islam in a bad way, and that's a fact. For example, when it comes to the T word, we have these studies showing you that Muslims are reported like 5 times more than any other religion. So it's a fact that the media is showing Islam in a bad light. But now she's saying that this is just the media, and he's laughing. Oh, it's a delusion. But the delusion is that the person who made the claim did not provide proof. That's the real delusion, right? So if you want to make up claims, you need to provide proof first. She doesn't need to rebut you by giving you evidence. You're the one making the claim. Where is the proof for what you claim?
What?
Yes, it's
It's
media.
the media.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that they are portraying these countries in a certain light, and that
So when women had a lot of freedom under an oppressive regime that was Western focused, dictatorship in Iran, don't get me wrong, not perfect.
Yeah.
But when they had that, women could go to school, women could work, women could go outside without wearing the outfit.
You're talking about Iran?
Iran, yeah, Iran.
So women don't work or go to school there? Check your facts, Caleb.
Honestly, look at this joke. Women, according to him, by the way, of course, Iran is not a perfect example, anyways, to give. But this is like he's saying, women are not allowed to work, or are not allowed to study, or not allowed to go out of the house, essentially, in Iran, according to this guy. And then when he's called out on it, he just freezes and he gives this look. One laughs, the other gives a look. Where is the evidences? You just spewing nonsense, literally, with no proof. You just make up realities, right? Like I said, my favorite streamer said it, therefore it must be true. So many people are following this kind of mentality. Okay, let's talk about the facts. So women are not allowed to study or work, according to this guy. So let's first look at this article by Forbes. What is Forbes telling us about Iran? So the article is titled the following: set to take over tech. 70% of Iran's science and engineering students are women. But according to this guy, women cannot go out of the house, cannot work, cannot do anything. Then we have this other article by Quartz. The West is way behind Iran and Saudi Arabia when it comes to women in science. What does it tell us? It tells us in Iran, nearly 70% of graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are women, a higher percentage than any other country. And then it says nearby, Oman, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates are close, each boasting over 60% female graduates in science, still more than the rest of the world. So this guy is like telling us, like he's telling us this nonsense about women like being trapped in the houses or whatever. Come on. Anybody can check videos online of women in Tehran clearly walking with their hair out. Go to Egypt. If you ever never been to Egypt, Morocco, never been to Tunisia, you never been anywhere. Clearly, Syria, Lebanon.
You think they have the same freedoms they had before it became a theocratic regime?
Well, by freedom, what is your definition? Women.
By freedom, what's your definition? Okay.
Yeah, okay, you're making fun of him, but yeah, you gotta define terms. What do you mean by freedom? Freedom is a general term. If he meant by freedom that they're not allowed to study, as he said, or work, or whatever, he's been refuted clearly. He's a liar. So what do you mean by freedom? You gotta define what you mean by these terms.
Men can go out naked or what?
Naked? How about
I'm
just not
saying.
wearing the outfit without getting beaten? And
They get
locked up?
beaten and
Yes.
locked up if they don't
The
wear it?
morality police? Yes.
Oh, okay.
What? Yes.
Women are not allowed to wear the outfit without getting beaten. Bro, what kind of world do you live in? Honestly, like I said, these people are living in basements. I'm sorry to say, but so many of these people, they just live in their basement. They never left their basement. And that's why they're talking like this. Like I said, go to any of these Muslim countries. Like women walking in the streets without the hijab. Of course, Islam teaches you to do it. So they're not doing the optimal thing when it comes to the religious worldview. But nobody's beating anybody, nobody's attacking anybody, nobody's harming anyone if we're not doing it. They're not following an Islamic teaching. And just like anybody else is not following an Islamic teaching by not praying, by drinking alcohol, by doing any other thing. There's no difference, really. Nobody's going to go and attack you for not following a specific religious teaching.
Again, this is not an anti-Muslim thing I'm talking about, but when you are going to come here and say it's the most feminist, in Saudi Arabia, they just got the right to drive a couple years ago.
Oh, God. This kind of claim about right to drive, it's like they have nothing else to say. Saudi Arabia and the right to drive. So they couldn't drive. Like, we know throughout Islamic history, first, there's nothing in Islam or the Quran or the Hadith that talks about women driving or not driving. We know driving is a modern invention. The vehicles, the cars are modern invention. There's nothing in Islam that teaches you to do or not to do this. We know that in Saudi Arabia, for a small period of time, they were prevented from doing this. Something that one country did. How many tens of Muslim countries? Not a single other Muslim country did this. So clearly, this is not based on Islam. And so, so women cannot drive, therefore equals women are oppressed. Of course, that doesn't work. Even if a country doesn't allow women to drive, that doesn't mean that these women are oppressed. What is it like? How did you make that correlation? Is your idea of freedom now is you're going to drive a car, right? How is like this claim of Saudi Arabia? They have nothing else really to repeat except this one.
I remember I had a friend telling me about that. He was in Saudi Arabia. He said that, well, he was my friend, so you can imagine what he said.
Yes, we see here, he mentioned and he implied that his friend said something very outrageous. So this is coming back to the beginning of the video, and he said he doesn't want to talk to me. He has many Muslim friends so he can talk to. But if you have this type of friends that will tell you these outrageous claims and stuff that is not true, then obviously you're asking the wrong people. And you're going to end up with the wrong ideas. That's why I said you need to talk to someone who actually disagrees with you. Not your friend circle and echo chamber who would agree with your ideology or tell you things that you would like to hear.
You would be beat in Iran if you took the scarf off.
Yeah.
No, I mean...
What, you get beat in San Diego? Is that what you were about to say?
No.
Yeah, he says like, you get beat in Iran if you take the scarf off. Proof. Where are you bringing this stuff from? I'm sorry, it's mind-blowing. Like I said, anybody can Google any videos of women walking in Iran without the headscarf like this. Tehran and any place in Iran, you'll see them. There is coverage of them in the media recently when they're asking them questions about the war and whatever, and you have women without any hijab that they're talking. So it's crazy. Plus, she's not even wearing, it's a different story, but she's not even wearing the headscarf. She's showing her hair.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think the American government has officers around beating you for not wearing certain things.
Offices around beating women for not wearing certain things. For me, I'm telling you, this video has 1 million views, and you have people commenting, and they're like affirming what's being said in the video. And you have him, Asmongold, affirming what's being said as if these are facts. Bro, like, are you guys crazy? What offices? What name the office? Tell us which countries. You're just making things up, and just people are nodding their heads like robots. It's crazy. It's insane.
Not necessarily in that regard, but
Not at all in that regard, actually.
Yeah,
I
not
think
at
what
all.
she's saying is the media had a certain portrayal. No. The media had a certain portrayal.
What was that
and then
portrayal?
and then she met me.
And this is the problem, is that I don't know why people go so hard to defend obvious bad behavior. This, I think, is doing so much negative PR for like anything Islamic. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, the reality is you haven't provided any proof for any bad behavior, so nobody is justifying anything. But I do agree with you that these two people here specifically are not a good example. Shouldn't be questioned on Islam when they're not specialized in that field. They shouldn't go on a big platform like this and talk. So I agree with you that they're not a good representation of Islam. But again, there's no proof for any bad behavior that we need to justify to begin with, because you haven't provided any sources for these claims that you guys are making. So it's all about evidences, and no evidences have been put forward. So we have this extreme idea that Islam is a feministic religion, which we are refuting. Yes, we don't believe Islam is the most feministic ideology or whatever. This is a bunch of nonsense. But at the same time, your other extreme of, offices out there are women going to beat up if she's not wearing a headscarf or whatever, it's also nonsense. Both of these parties in this case are a bad representation of their respective communities.
They can say all they want. That doesn't mean they actually
are practicing
do it.
the principle.
Okay, well,
It's-
are we
it's
going to do the whole
our
thing that
control,
Christians
yeah.
do with shellfish and a bunch of shit like that?
No,
Where we
no,
pick and
no.
choose what we like
No.
depending on our world value?
No,
Because you
of course
guys are
not.
more Western?
No, but here's the thing. This is
Jesus.
what I'm going to say. Okay, because
Okay.
I think what she's trying to say is this: when we
Are you guys in
started,
debt?
So here, he was about to say something, but he did this, debate tactic, and he interrupted him before he even finished his sentence.
we're in so much debt.
Okay, then you're not following Islamic
Uh-oh.
principles.
That's true. We're in so much debt.
Okay, then you're not following Islamic principles.
Oh my God. Wow.
Then what are you going to tell me?
So here, it's all about gotcha moments. Oh, gotcha moment, because this is like I think a financial show, and the guy's like, I'm in debt. Oh, then I'm not gonna listen to anything you say. So why did you pick someone in debt who clearly doesn't know finances well, and clearly are not well versed in Islamic knowledge and sciences, and you brought him on? You clearly picking someone who is not a good example in this case when it comes to finances, clearly, and what he's talking about, and you're attacking him. So you're not being just, you're clearly being biased in your approach. So it's about gotcha moments. It's all about the clip, right? That's what it's all about.
Honestly, I love this guy. He is so based.
Yeah, I love this guy. He's so based. He just spews the absolute craziest nonsense without any proof that he makes up on the spot. And I love listening to the echo chamber repeating something that I agree with, that because I'm biased, without any proof. But yeah, I love it. I love it. I love hearing it.
It's just, again, I don't have a problem with people being whatever religion they want, but like, you don't get to decide reality. You don't get to edit out reality and be like, oh no, this is actually, everybody's doing it wrong, including me.
I 100% agree with you. You don't get to decide reality, which means you just spewing nonsense that is not factually based, that is clearly against the evidence, as I have clearly shown. It doesn't make reality. Reality is not you spewing nonsense and saying things as if they're true. Reality is where you actually provide proof and evidences for what you say. So may Allah guide him. Like I said, he's recently been doing a lot of content that is anti, let's say. It's not the best content, to say the least. May Allah guide him. And like I said, my invitation is still there. It's also, my invitation is also for this glasses guy, the other glasses guy who I don't even know who he is. It's there as well. If you want to talk to someone about Islam and the teachings of Islam and the West, why don't you talk to someone who can actually represent the religion and the teachings, meaning that he knows what the teachings are, rather than bringing any two random people, as you said, that are in depth and just trying to get a gotcha clip. So my invitation is for both of them, for Asmongold and this other guy. If you guys want to have a chat actually about Islam teaches, you're more than welcome to do so. But like I said, I know some people, they want to live in an echo chamber. They want to get the gotcha clip. They want to get the views. They want to continue what they're doing. It's not about actually what people believe and what people don't believe. It's about these audiences that want to hear this, so they can cheer for them and they can continue supporting them. So may Allah guide everyone to the truth.